What's going on, everybody? Captain Cody Davis here, hanging out in the garage, getting some tackle together. Actually going to go out and do some crappie fishing in the morning out here on the lake. Not something I do a ton of, so actually going to be going with a buddy of mine who's got these things dialed in and just try to showcase it. I'm going to video hopefully tomorrow and get you guys some footage of how we spec or crappie fish out here, if you will. I do offer trips if you guys are looking to go fill the cooler, bring home some fish to eat. They're a hell of a lot of fun to catch. They're great eating. You can keep 25 a person, and they are biting right now. So if you guys are interested in that, definitely give me a call, and I can let you know how all that works to do a crappie trip. But the reason I'm filming right now is I've been getting a ton of questions from clients getting on the boat, people messaging me on Instagram, Facebook, emails, wanting to know my flipping and pitching setup for out here on Okeechobee, wanting to know what rod, what reel I prefer, what size weight that I prefer most, and what type of bait do you need to be flipping out here. So I figured I'd walk through what I use and what works for me. I'm not saying it's the best. I'm not saying it's the stuff that you have to have. This is just what works for me. There's other, rods, reels, baits, hooks that you have confidence in. It'll work just fine out here. I'm just going to explain why I use it and why I think it works best for me. So we're going to start with the hook. Actually, we're going to start with the weight. We'll start up there. This is a 3/4 ounce tungsten weight. Now, in my opinion, this is the most universal weight size for out here on Lake Okeechobee. On your home lake at home, it might be different, but out here, this will pretty much do 80% of your work out here for you. It's light enough that you could pitch it to sparse reeds or just, little clumps of sawgrass or flat reeds, if you will, little buggy whips, little individual stalks. It's light enough for that, but it's heavy enough that it's going to get you through any chopped up eelgrass, any thin pennywort mats, thin water hyacinth, and just put you through any reed heads, if you will, down like on the south end of the lake. It's heavy enough that it'll punch through most of that stuff. Now, if you get some really thick stuff and you have to go up to 1.5 ounces, 1.25 ounces, or even a 2 ounce at times, it's going to happen. But this is probably my most universal and my most commonly used weight out here. I don't care if it's January, if it's December, if it's July. I have a flipping rod with a 3/4 ounce tungsten on the deck of the boat. It's just got so many applications out here, you can't go wrong with it. Down to the hook, I flip a 5/0 Hack Attack Strike King hook here. A lot of people don't like these hooks. I'm not sure why. I've had nothing but great success with them. Really thick gauge. They're not going to flex on you. Real wide gap, so you're going to have a good hookup ratio with some big fish. And it's got an awesome bait keeper on there to keep your bait from sliding or moving around on the hook. I peg it with a bobber stop. If I go up to anything over 1.25 ounces, I'll usually put 2 bobber stops on there. And then kind of just a standard with anyone who flips down here in Florida, 65-pound braid. This is Suffolk's Performance Braid. My wife turned me on to this about 5 years ago, and I haven't looked back. It's great. It's unbreakable, in my opinion. It's not quiet. It's not thin. It's not super smooth, but it doesn't break. It's tugboat rope. At the end of the day, I can get away, with the being a little louder and maybe a little thicker, but I want to know when I set the hook and swing on that fish that I don't have to worry about my line breaking or popping on me. So really like this stuff. So again, 3/4 ounce weight, 5/0 Hack Attack hook. You can use any flipping hook that you like. Gamakatsu makes a really good one as well. That's just standardly what I use 80% of the time out here, just for my everyday flipping applications on Okeechobee. The reel, it doesn't matter. This just happens to be a loose Super Duty. I like it. Use what's comfortable in your hand. Everyone's hand's different. You want something that's nice and comfortable and fits in your hand nice. Just want a good gear ratio between a 7 and 8-to-1. I don't like anything over an 8-to-1 because I like when I turn the handle, I want to move the fish. What you gain in speed, you're going to lose in torque. So this happens to be a 7.5-to-1. It's even a little quick. I really like a 7 or a 7.2-to-1 is my favorite. But again, good drag. You just want a heavy drag that it won't slip on a hook set, and something that's comfortable in your hand. All right, so I get asked all the time what rod I use to flip and pitch with. This is an Arc Invoker 7.6 heavy, and this is what I use for my 3/4 ounce presentation, if you will. If I go up to 1.5 ounces, up to a 2 ounce, I flip their 7.11 heavy in the Invoker series as well. And for my big jig, a 3/4 to a 1 ounce flipping jig, I go up to their 7.10 heavy. Same series of rod, an Arc Invoker. I just like the bigger rod. That's just my personal preference. These rods, when you pick them up, you're going to be stunned of how light they are, and you're going to think that you're going to be shattering them or splintering them on hook sets. I've yet to break one. Super light, which I like, that you don't feel fatigued after flipping for 8 hours straight, which I often do. They're super light, super sensitive. When you flip that bait and let it fall on a slack line, you're going to feel every reed, everything that bait hits on the way down. Super strong, like I mentioned. I've yet to break one. And you're going to think this rod, probably retails at, around a $200, $230 rod when you pick it up. These things retail at $159.99. It's insane. You can search high and low. You're not going to find a rod at this price point, that's this quality. You're not going to find it. They're great. They use all great components, tangle-free guides, the whole nine. Louis over there at ARC just did an amazing job coming up with these rods. It's got plenty of backbone to pull those fish out of the heavy cover, but it's got just enough tip to allow you to make accurate pitches, when trying to finagle that bait into a tight spot, and just enough tip where you can load and check your fish before setting the hook. Love these. You can flip them all day without getting tired, and you feel every little reed, everything. You feel everything your bait does, which is really nice. So definitely check them out. Okay, so that's what I use. Now, the other most common question is, what bait is best to flip on Lake Okeechobee? Is it a crawl like the Gambler Burner crawl here, or the Crazy crawl? A tube. A lot of people ask about a tube or a beaver style bait. I'm just looking for randomness I have laying around, like a Gambler Stinger or a Reaction Innovation Sweet Beaver. That's a big one. Everyone wants to know, what do I need to flip? And the answer is, it does not matter. A lot of people, this is just my 2 cents. Again, I'm not saying that I'm right and that I know everything, but this is kind of how I look at flipping and pitching. Anyone you usually listen to or ask, they're going to tell you that you catch the biggest fish in the lake flipping because the biggest fish in the lake live in the heaviest cover on the lake. And to me, that can't be any further from the truth. A 10-pounder lives in the same place a 2-pounder lives, and an 8-pounder lives in the same place that a 4-pounder lives. A bass is a bass. They're ambush predators. They all live in the same spots, and big giant fish get caught offshore all over the country, around 25 feet of water. Same thing on this lake. There's no difference there. The biggest fish do live in heavy cover, but so do the small ones. So getting back to why it doesn't matter, I think the biggest reason that you catch big fish flipping and pitching, not just on Okeechobee, but all over the country, is when you flip and you make an accurate pitch to the structure that fish is living in, whether it's a mat, whether it's a reed head, whether it's just some isolated, buggy whips out in open water, as opposed to a jig like this or a chatterbait like this that's kind of coming by and they can track it and follow it to the boat. A rattle trap like you see here. When that thing comes by them, they can kind of track it and get a look at it. When you present a flipping bait correctly, this is what they see. I don't even know if you saw that, but that's it. When you make that presentation and you flip that bait to the reeds that they're in, they don't have time to inspect it. They don't have time to track it, follow it, check its movements, see what it looks like. When it falls, they need to grab it. That's all they know. They're instinctively just going to open their mouth and snatch whatever's falling. As long as you're flipping a dark color like black and blue, which is why black and blue is so popular down here in Florida and just all over the country for flipping as a whole, black, something dark, they just see a silhouette rocketing past them, and their instinct is to grab it and get it in their mouth before they even know what's going on. If you're flipping the right gear, you're on your game. By the time that fish even thinks about what's in its mouth, you should rear back and have a hook going right through her lip. So that's the answer to the question. What should you flip? Whatever works best on your setup. If you flip a different weight, a different rod, a different line, and a different hook than I do, just flip whatever's going to hold your hook the best. What's not going to come through, a bait that your hook's not going to come through and snag every reed. A bait that you can flip efficiently and not be constantly getting stuck, snagged, and redoing your bait on your flipping rig, if you will. Because I promise you, this is a Gambler Stinger here, or even this Bruiser Crazy Craw, you could rip these feet off and probably just flip this nub and have just as good a success. Because again, they don't have time to look at it. So that's my 2 cents. You know, that's my opinion. Flip what you have confidence in. You know, flip whatever works for you, and you're going to catch fish. Especially, you know, doing this technique. Now, sometimes in the spring when the fish are targeting brim beds and stuff, yeah, sometimes you want to flip something big that resembles a bluegill, you know, like a big jig or a really big beaver style bait. But as a whole for flipping, make the quiet presentation, let it fall on a slack line, fish gear that's comfortable for you because you will feel fatigued by the end of the day doing it all day, and you're going to get big bites. As long as you have gear that you believe in and that you have confidence in, that you can put some serious pressure on those fish, you're going to pull them out and you're going to put big fish in the boat. So I hope that helps. Again, 3/4 ounce, I think that's the most efficient and the most, you know, what's the word I'm looking for?